Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and this is my review of the second episode of the third season of the Orville, called Shadow Realms, and in my opinion it was a fantastic episode. I really enjoyed it. However, the second half of the episode kind of annoyed me a little bit because of how much it was inspired by other science fiction movies and shows, and so it annoyed me a little bit that it wasn't as original as I hoped it would be. And in my previous video, which was a review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I was complaining about the fact that they borrowed ideas from other sources, and so I cannot say that as a complaint about one show and then ignoring the same problem in another show, in which they borrowed ideas from other science fiction movies which were done better in those movies, and they just did their own version of it. And the special effects in the end of the episode seemed kind of fishy. The way that those creatures were moving in the end and, running on the walls like xenomorphs, but it looked way worse than xenomorphs, and so that kind of annoyed me a little bit. That I always say, if they do a remake of an idea, at least make it better than it was done before, and that way I will enjoy it more. But if you make a ripoff of something and make it a lesser copy, then it's annoying. That's why I have a problem with the second half of this episode. I thought the first half was absolutely fantastic when there was an actual mystery. So basically the Orville goes into unexplored space after the Krill allow them passage through their territory, because there's now kind of a treaty between the Krill and the Union. And I think one of the Krill we saw in this episode was played by the same guy who played Silik in Enterprise and a Romulan in Deep Space Nine and in TNG. So it's always funny to me that they not only borrow the ideas from Star Trek episodes but also the actors. And the Krill try to warn them not to go into that unexplored space because according to their holy text there are demons there and stuff like that, and yet they go there anyway. And that also reminded me of a scene in Enterprise when the Vulcans were warning Archer not to go into the Expanse where the Xindi were, because there were all kinds of strange weird things in there, and then he went there anyway. And when the Krill said they will not be doing any rescue missions, that reminded me of a scene from TNG when the Klingons helped Picard and Data get to Romulus, and they told them we will not be doing any rescue missions. And so the Orville goes into that region of space, and suddenly there are no stars there at all. It's total darkness, and that reminded me of an episode of Voyager in which they went into a region of space without any stars, and it was creepy and all of that. And so a lot of elements from all kinds of Star Trek episodes, and they find some kind of huge space station which looks very creepy, and it has a strange opening which opens for them, which kind of looks like Vidger from the motion picture. And by this point I was completely loving this episode. I loved the excitement of the unknown, the mystery and all of that. I absolutely loved it. And also there was the B-plot of some admiral coming to the ship, and he's the ex-husband of Dr. Finn, and he wants to get back with her but she doesn't want to. And then he comes to Isaac for advice, and Isaac as always is brutally honest and tells everything to the last detail. And there was a funny moment when he even starts talking about Dr. Finn's favorite sex positions and stuff like that. So that was hilarious, and so I was loving this episode until that point when they go into that space station, in which after that it became kind of too predictable. So they go in there and the walls are organic, it's all biological on the inside, and then we see those eggs on the walls. And of course they come in there without wearing any spacesuits of any kind, which was annoying. It's the same kind of thing I'm complaining about in other shows and movies, so I cannot give this show a pass just because it's a comedy. I guess if they made jokes out of it, then it would be worth it, but they didn't really. It was a relatively serious episode, and so if they want us to take all of this seriously, then they should not have such stupid decisions made by the characters. They could have gone in with spacesuits and still be infected. Just like in the original Alien, the facehugger was simply able to get through the spacesuit, and so it's not really a problem to have the same plot happen anyway, but not have the characters appear to be so stupid. So when they know absolutely nothing about what's inside, they go in there without any spacesuits at all, and they start touching things, touching the walls. It's the same thing I complained about in Star Trek Discovery, so I'm not about to let it slide here. So it's kind of as stupid as those characters in Prometheus and Alien Covenant, who also were very careless in how they dealt with touching alien stuff. And then we see the eggs on the walls, and then the Admiral puts his face right into that egg, and it was so predictable that it was funny that nothing happened when the egg kind of started opening, but nothing really happened, at least visually. So I guess that was the joke, that nothing happened. And then they go back into the ship, and then the Admiral does start having seizures and stuff, just like that guy in Alien, when everyone thought he was fine after the facehugger, and suddenly he started having a seizure or something. So the Admiral starts mutating into something. Suddenly he has extra eyes on his face and little hairs which look like insect hairs, and they put him in sickbay, and then he has dramatic scenes with Dr. Finn, and that kind of reminded me of the movie The Fly. So I guess that was the only reason they had Finn and this guy be former lovers, so that those scenes of him would be more dramatic when he gets mutated and all of that. And so they have scenes of him saying, I feel so strange, I'm scared, and that really is the same dialogue as in The Fly. And the makeup is also similar to what happened with Barclay in TNG when the crew of the Enterprise got mutated, and also how all the power went off in the ship and they had to manually dock the shuttle back in. That also happened in that TNG episode Genesis, and then Barclay showed up as half a spider or something, which was creepy. And so a lot of similar elements here, and it was kind of good until the Admiral suddenly disappeared and then returned as a complete monster, and there was no character to him anymore at that point, and so it made the previous setup almost totally pointless by that point, and it became a totally horror movie of people walking through dark corridors being chased by these monsters, because he can also infect others to also mutate them into the same kind of creatures by spitting something in their face, which also happened in TNG when Worf was mutating into a monster. He was spitting acid at people's faces. So this guy is running around on the walls like a xenomorph and spitting at people to also morph them into the same kind of creatures. And there was a nice scene of one of the creatures facing Isaac and not doing anything to him because he's not organic, so he cannot be assimilated by them. I guess maybe these creatures will become another villain in the show, because they seem to belong to some species which goes around the galaxy consuming people in this way. So it's like biological Borg almost. They want to have a unity of all organisms belonging to the same organism or something like that. So I guess it's a neat idea, especially since their ships also appear to be organic and all of that. So it might be a cool idea for villains, but I wasn't really that impressed by them in this episode when they were running on the walls and fighting the security chief, who is super strong because she comes from a planet with high gravity, so she basically kicks their asses easily, and that doesn't make them seem really scary. And then Dr. Finn says she can engineer a simple virus that will kill all of them because they have no immune system. So all of that made those villains seem kind of weak, so they give the aliens an ultimatum to leave the ship, and then they do, and that's how they solve the conflict. I guess it's a nice thing they didn't just kill all of them, that it was kind of a Star Trek kind of ending. And it also reminds me of the TNG episode Identity, when Geordi was mutating into an alien because some parasites on some planet turn whoever they infect into one of their species. And in the end of that episode we saw a bunch of former Starfleet officers who got changed, who were left alone on that planet to live there as those aliens. So it's really similar to that as well, and that's my criticism of this episode, that most of the ideas here seem to be borrowed from other Star Trek episodes and other science fiction movies like Alien and The Fly, and it's as if they put all those ideas in a blender and produce this, which doesn't feel very original as a result. So that was a little bit disappointing, but I still did enjoy the episode overall, especially the beginning. It was really exciting and fun in my opinion. And I do wonder if those aliens will come back later. Maybe they will be the new villains. They might be like a biological Borg who want to assimilate everyone into their own organism and whatever. And the whole idea of organic ships and biological ships and biomechanoids and all that kind of stuff is something I always found fascinating. Some of my very first videos on this channel were talking about the space jockey in Alien and that whole idea, and how badly Prometheus screwed that up by ruining that whole idea of the biomechanoid and the biological ship and all of that. And so the ideas in this episode are ideas I love, and I think visually it was mostly good, except in the end when some of the action scenes looked a little bit cartoony. But overall the episode was very enjoyable, very fun, but I do have to take a few points away for being not that original, so I would give it an 8 out of 10. If they had a few more original ideas of their own, it would have been a 10. So that's my opinion. Let me know what you think, and we can discuss all of this in the comments below, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.